Hello. I will talk about the Afghan refugees in Sweden. And I represent, I can say, three networks or organizations. One is the network Stop Deportations to Afghanistan, which has been in function since late 2016 and has got about 23,000 members. The next is the supporting pillar, Stöttepelaren, which was founded in the autumn of 2017 and is a society for support to young persons who came to Sweden as unaccompanied minors. And the third is the unnecessary refugee crisis. It's a book project on the rule of law, the civil society, and the refugees. It is to be printed in October 2021, but it's already available on the net, mostly in Swedish, but we are trying to translate at least some of the important parts of it into English too. In 2015, Sweden was one of those countries who got most asylum seekers in comparison to the size of the population in Sweden. There were more than 163,000 persons who sought asylum in Sweden in that year, and most of them from Syria. Those that came from Syria, they got their asylum more or less without problems, according to rules that were decided by the Swedish government. For the Afghan people, it was very different. There were about 42,000, and of these were 23,000 unaccompanied minors. And there were also families with children and adults without children, but the unaccompanied minors have become sort of the image of Afghan refugees in Sweden. An estimation was that the majority of the Afghan citizens who came to Sweden are of Hazara origin, and about half of them have lived in Iran, some of them all their life. Some have also lived in Pakistan. In the summer of 2016, Sweden introduced a new law with more strict demands for asylum, and which is very, very strange and bad, it had a retroactive effect. That means those who had come under a more generous law were still judged by the more strong law, severe and draconic law, I could say. And this was particularly bad for the Afghan citizens because they had to wait very long until their asylum processes were even started. During that meantime, their passports and tazkiras were generally not accepted to prove their identity. And that means they were not allowed to work while waiting. So they were already left in a limbo. And then slowly, their asylum processes started, but it was not until the spring of 2020 that all Afghan citizens had actually got their definite decisions. So this limbo that Lisa spoke about is really very strong, bad thing for these Afghan citizens in Sweden. And then about half of them got residence permits, but most of them temporary permits, as short as 13 months for many. And there were more than 21,000 who did not get asylum. 7,000 of them later got short-term permits for studies. I'll return to that. This joint way forward agreement that was on the European Union level had also a similar agreement directly between Sweden and Afghanistan. And it is mentioned, it's referred to, but it's all fraud. Because, first of all, it says that people are to be readmitted to Afghanistan after consideration of all relevant international laws and legal procedures in Sweden, which is not done. I'll return to that. The asylum process in Sweden has been far from anything that can be called rule of law. The return process shall be phased, orderly, and humane. Not at all. You tie people and load them on the planes. You force them to have medical injections or tablets that makes them that they can't object. And also the third thing is that the Afghan government is to guarantee that they can be returned without any fear, which is also, of course, as we know the situation in Afghanistan, it's not possible, both regarding the personal threats against many of these people and the general totally unstable situation in Afghanistan. During these years, about 700 persons have gone to Afghanistan. And as I said, there were about 21,000 who had got their rejections. So of these who have gone to Afghanistan, at least 555 of them were forced, typically forced, and all the rest were sort of, or most of the rest were sort of persuaded, but it was not for cruel force. But the majority, they have not gone back to Afghanistan. As for the asylum process, it's called rule of law. I would rather say it's a lottery. In theory, you can appeal to two courts after the first verdict, but this very seldom changes anything because the courts, they just take the decision of the migration authority. They don't even read it properly, I think, sometimes. And as we have heard also now before, the questions that both the court and the migration authority give to the asylum seekers, they are aimed at showing that they have low credibility, that they are not trustworthy. They are not aimed at showing what asylum reasons they have, but to show that they are liars. The rejections show that they are standardized. They're written in a way that you can see that they have copied every word. Sometimes they've even copied the words for somebody from another country so that an Afghan is supposed to be deported to Somalia or to Eritrea. Oh, sorry. They clearly show that the interview has not been read and judged seriously. And the available land information is not considered. Swedish Migration Authority is about the only authority, I think, that say that Afghanistan is safe. All other, or very many other authorities, international and also researchers, they say that there's a war in Afghanistan, but somehow the Swedish Migration Authority seems to have missed that. Papers and other evidence from Afghanistan are not accepted as a rule, as they are easy to forge. That means that whatever paper you have from Afghanistan, it's not trusted. As for the unaccompanied minors, who are those that I have worked mostly with, you can see some of their situations: despair, struggle, but also for some of them, success. And the most horrible thing about how these youngsters are treated is the age assessments, which aim to prove that everybody is adult. So if you're over 18, you can be expelled. That means the Swedish authorities don't consider anything, judgments from schools, from doctors, from anybody in Sweden or in their home countries. They are not trusted. The only thing that is trusted is the medical age assessments, which are made with a very strongly criticized method. And the result is, if you cannot prove that you're a hard child, and how can a child prove that he's a child when none of his papers are accepted? If you cannot prove that, then you're considered over 18 and you're given a new age. Some of them have been given a new age and then it's been appealed and they have taken it down again and a new age again. So some of them have papers with sort of 4 or 5 ages. And it's always the authorities that decide how old you are. And if you claim the age that you claim, that you had when you came, then you have lied about your age. Almost everybody who they made this age assessments on were actually raised in age to 18, and then only 8% of them got asylum because they were liars. They had lied about their age. In 2018, there was a new law introduced that gives the right to stay for studies at the high school level for some of these youngsters. But the limitations of who this was to, who could be affected by that was totally arbitrary. So that means about 7,000 young Afghans got this chance, and at least as many did not get it because they came on the wrong date or because they were too young. Think, if you're old enough, then you can be allowed to stay. If you're a child, then we'll kick you out. After studies, there is now the demand that you shall get a steady job within 6 months after examination. Otherwise, you'll be kicked out. And I mean, what young people get a steady job, a contract of at least 2 years, full time, directly after the examination? Not even the totally Swedish youngsters get it, and especially not in Corona times. So for these youngsters, it's despair. They give me a job, give me a job, give me a job. We're doing what we can, but we can't. So where are they now? Approximate figures. We don't have figures really, but we can say that there are about 6. This is all about the unaccompanied minors still. About 6,000 of them have short-term permits, according to the Stay for Studies. But we don't know what will happen when they finish school. There are 200 or 300 who have found jobs and got their permanent resident permits. And there are about sort of 800 who have already lost their chance to stay as they did not find jobs. They have finished school in Swedish. They have educations that are needed in Sweden, but they don't get the steady jobs. So they are to be kicked out. There are about 8,000 who were not given the chance to stay for studies. So they have been paperless for years. And of them, sort of 3,000 have fled on to France and other European countries where they hope for a better treatment and often get it. I mean, their consideration is it's better to live under a bridge in Paris than to live under a bridge in Kabul. And a few hundred have been deported to Pakistan, to Afghanistan, I mean. And what is so horrible, there are about 1,000 who are still minors because they were so young that they could not be raised in age. They were maybe only 13. Nobody could say that they were 18. They have to wait for their 18th birthday, and then they will be expelled. We think that there are about 5,000 young Afghans who live paperless in Sweden. They live in constant fear of being caught. Some have spent many, many months in detention centers waiting for deportation. If they live outside the detention center or if they are detained, of course it creates large psychological problems. and also the problems with no money, no home, no food, no safety. Many of them get support and lodging from Swedish friends and families. And there is also quite a lot of help from the civil society, but of course not at all what these people would need. There is also good solidarity between youths that have the permit and those who don't have. They help each other with lodging and so on. But there is still the very, very big risk of drug use, prostitution, criminality, slave work, despair, suicide. Because what can they do? They are totally kept in limbo without anything. There are also quite a few who, despite all this, they still succeed with the studies. They live with the family, they manage to keep hidden from the police, and they keep on studying. The schools are often quite generous, allowing them to still study. But one young man whom I just read about, he was paperless. He had got 1 month more to finish his examination in a technical profession, and he's taken to custody and to be thrown out. There are also families with children, but I don't think I have the time to really talk about them. I will just remind you that there are quite a lot of Afghan families in Sweden who are not deported because Afghanistan does not take them. Sweden wants to deport them, but Afghanistan does not take them. But Sweden does life very, very difficult for them, to force them to agree to be taken to Afghanistan. Many of them flee to other countries in Europe also. There are lots of organizations in the civil society, large and small, new and old, that do help these people in different ways. Support with food and lodging, etc. Help with legal and other paperwork, help to find jobs, psychological and medical help, and spreading information and creating opinion in Sweden about them. For example, also, we wrote a letter to the refugee minister of Afghanistan, a joint letter from several organizations in Sweden in December, saying that telling the Afghan government that Sweden has not given these people a fair trial, because they haven't. And also then we have this book project, The Unnecessary Refugee Crisis, where of course we don't mean that the refugees were unnecessary, but that it was totally unnecessary that it became a crisis, because the civil society in Sweden wanted to support these people and were not allowed to, because the state destroyed all of it. Is there time for me to talk about the future? Sarah? Okay, I'll continue.
Yes, you can continue.
I can continue, okay. Because this temporary law, this law from draconic law from 2016, it was temporary. It's been renewed once, but now there's going to be a permanent law, permanent migration law. And it will be also, as far as we see it, a very strict and unhumane law. But I'll concentrate on the effects for those who are already in Sweden. First of all, it's all very unclear. The law is to be passed in June, but we still don't know really what it will be, because there is no stable parliamentary majority for anything in this law. All parts of the law have some sort of majority for them, but not the totality. Some parties agree on that, and so some parties agree on that, and we don't know what will be the totality. So it's very difficult to say really what it will be. There is a suggested new ground for residence permit for particularly painful circumstances. This could mean that these youngsters who have been in Sweden for a long time will get a new chance. This is what the Green Party, which is in government, what they say that it will mean. But it can also mean that they will not get a chance. That is what the migration minister from the Social Democrats sitting in the same government, what he says. So we don't know what they mean, and we don't know what it will be. There is also a suggestion about softening of the job demands after stay for studies, which also we don't know what will happen. So the limbo is sort of double just now, because those who are on the point of having their permits ended, they don't even know what will be the law just after my permit is ended. So nobody knows anything. The situation is very unstable. But most likely it's to be a continued very difficult situation. So lastly, the stöttepelaren, the supporting pillar, the organization where I'm the president, we help people, these young people. I mean, mostly Afghan. We are not strictly helping Afghan people. We are helping those who come as unaccompanied minors, but most of them are, in fact, Afghan. And we help them with food. We don't have the money to help them with lodging, but we have a network we can suggest that maybe you could go there, stay with that person and so on, without no money included at all. Medicine and legal help, it's the same thing. We can't give the legal help as such, but we have contacts, so we can in that way help at least a little. And for those of you, now I talk to those abroad, hopefully listening to this seminar. If you have money and you want to do something good with it, send it to Stöttepelaren and we'll distribute it to the Afghan youth in Sweden. We have absolutely no administration costs, only the cost that is we have to pay to the bank to have a bank account. All is voluntary work, and I think we are needed. So thank you. I'd be glad to ask questions if there